It's not really terrorism, it's imperialism. Their goal is to keep us in a state of permanent war so that we cannot develop and so they can continue to plunder our resources. So they have every interest in bringing in specialists in mines to lay various types of mines and explosives experts. Today, the terrorists use drones to fight and everything. So these are professionals from certain countries who come to teach them all of this. All of this is to keep...
Burkina Faso just shocked the world. Its gold production is rising in 2025, despite years of chaos, corporate exits, and conflict. How did a country abandoned by Western miners turn its crumbling industry into a comeback story? Who's behind this revival? And why now? Let's find out. In the dust of abandoned equipment and sealed shafts, something has begun to stir in Burkina Faso's goldfields. The world thought it was finished, left behind by companies that once praised its potential but fled at the first sign of trouble. What they didn't realize was that gold doesn't vanish. It just waits for hands bold enough to claim it. And in 2025, those hands are finally back at work. Burkina Faso has quietly set its sights on an ambitious milestone, a 4% rise in industrial gold production, pushing the total to 55.7 metric tons. But this number isn't just a data point, it's a declaration. Because in the global gold race, a percentage point can change the fate of an entire nation. This unexpected growth comes not from fresh foreign deals or miracle discoveries, but from something far more calculated: the reactivation of sleeping giants. Two mining sites, Yuga in the south and Kiaka in the southeast, are being brought back online with strategic precision. The first, once left idle in silence, now hums with renewed activity. The second, still untouched by extraction, is preparing to break ground. Behind these numbers lies a country refusing to play victim. And at the center of that transformation is a deliberate strategy: reclaim what's already there. Rather than pouring energy into risky new digs or chasing speculative territories, the government and its partners are breathing life into the dormant veins of gold that others left behind. The Yuga mine, long considered a fading memory, has returned to operation under Soleil Resources International Ltd. Quietly but steadily, operations resumed in late 2024. Now, trucks move in and out, the ground gives way to drills, and the site pulses with activity once more. This isn't just a technical restart, it's a symbolic one. Yuga's reawakening is proof that gold doesn't belong only to those who discover it first, but to those who hold on last. Meanwhile, the Kiaka mine, operated by Australia's West African Resources, is marching toward its first pour, expected in the third quarter of 2025. What makes Kiaka special isn't just its scale or reserves, but its timing. It's coming online after others have fled. In the ashes of uncertainty, Kiaka stands as a kind of defiance, proof that even in retreat, opportunity remains for those with enough patience and guts. And here's the twist: none of this happened in isolation. These two mines were not just reactivated, they were re-strategized. Their timing and scale appear calculated to fill the exact vacuum left by Western firms who once held the keys. As Burkina Faso rises from its mining lull, it's not starting over. It's picking up the pieces of a game someone else quit playing. The implications of this are vast. For one, it repositions the country in the African gold map, not just as a producer, but as a survivor in the high-risk, high-reward resource sector. And more importantly, it sends a clear message. Burkina Faso doesn't need to be rescued. It needs space to operate on its own terms. That 4% rise isn't just about metrics, it's a signal flare. It tells the world that gold is flowing again, but this time, the pipelines and profit structures might look very different. Still, numbers alone don't change power. If Burkina Faso truly wants to control its gold story, it can't just mine it, it has to own it. And ownership, as history shows, doesn't begin in the fields. It begins in the frameworks, the contracts, the laws, the rules of the game. So as the drills roar back to life in Yuga and Kiaka, a deeper question rises beneath the surface. Is the country merely producing more gold? Or is it finally building a system where Burkinabe hands hold the keys to Burkinabe treasure? That's where the real shift begins. Not underground, but in the halls of government. And that's exactly where we're headed next. Here's a reminder to please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on Black culture, history, civilization, and identity. Let's continue now. Gold might glitter underground, but real power lies in the paper that governs it. That's a lesson Burkina Faso has now etched into its national strategy. Because after reactivating its mines and proving the veins still run deep, the next move wasn't to dig faster. It was to change the rules of the game entirely. Yuga and Kiaka may be buzzing with activity, but if Burkina Faso wanted to ensure its gold didn't just leave in foreign trucks, if it truly wanted to capture value for its people, it had to do something far more radical: redesign who benefits from the gold economy. And that began with the mining code. Since coming to power in 2022, Captain Ibrahim Traore has not only positioned himself as a military leader, but as an economic architect. Early in his rule, he recognized what many African governments have ignored for decades: that natural resources without national control don't bring sovereignty, they bring dependence. And so, under his administration, Burkina Faso began the slow and deliberate process of rewriting the legal backbone of its mining sector. This wasn't a cosmetic update. The changes went to the root. The revised mining code now gives the state a significantly larger role in mining operations, both in oversight and in actual financial participation. Foreign companies, under the new code, are no longer just operating in the shadows with flexible contracts and offshore tax shelters. They must now acknowledge the Burkinabe state as a real stakeholder, with its expectations, shares, and rights. The reforms include stricter transparency requirements, revenue-sharing mandates, and a framework to channel more profits into the national budget and the Mineral Wealth Fund. In short, the state doesn't just approve licenses, it now acts as a silent partner with a loud voice. But the true genius lies not in the technicalities, but in the timing. The mining code reform came at a moment of global retreat. Western companies were already unnerved. Security concerns, regional instability, and the rise of juntas across the Sahel had made them uncomfortable. Some had already started packing up. So when Burkina Faso changed the law, it wasn't doing so from a place of weakness. It was doing so in a vacuum. With companies leaving anyway, the government could finally impose new terms without fear of collapse. They weren't pushing partners away. They were watching them walk out the door. And once the doors closed, they locked them differently. That's why Fortuna Silver Mines made headlines in April 2025. The Canadian firm, which had once held a prized concession at the Yaramoko mine, sold its stake to a local private company for $130 million. Their reason? Officially, declining reserves. But in the corridors of industry, another story circulated. Burkina Faso was no longer easy money. In reality, the new code meant Western firms couldn't extract profits and leave governance behind. That old era was gone. Now every gram of gold had to pass through a web of accountability, taxation, and local contribution. It was no longer enough to mine. Companies had to build, share, and stay visible. These legal changes also had a psychological effect. They signaled a government that wasn't just surviving but planning long-term. This wasn't looting or chaos. It was structural reform under pressure. And that perception, order under a military regime, was enough to shift the playing field. Of course, the West didn't celebrate. Investors labeled the move as nationalization light, and policy analysts warned of a chilling effect. But for the Burkinabe people, it was a long overdue correction. A resource-rich nation with one of the world's poorest populations could no longer afford to be polite about wealth. The new code didn't just reshape contracts, it redefined the idea of economic patriotism. It asked a fundamental question. What does it mean to mine gold in a country where the majority still lives in poverty? And the answer was equally unapologetic. It means giving more of that gold back to the soil it came from. Still, Burkina Faso knew that rewriting laws on paper wouldn't be enough. To replace old investors, they needed new allies, ones who wouldn't flinch at national terms. They had just closed the Western chapter. Now, it was time to turn east. When you slam one door shut, another often swings open. That's exactly what happened after Burkina Faso restructured its mining code and began asserting control over its mineral wealth. As Western investors packed their briefcases and quietly left through the back door, another global player stepped forward, calmly, confidently, and with a different set of rules: Russia. This wasn't an accident. It was a calculated pivot by both sides. For Burkina Faso, the exodus of Western mining firms didn't create a crisis. It created a vacancy and opportunity. The junta-led government didn't just want investors who could extract gold. It wanted partners who would play by the new rules. The West, with its long-standing expectation of soft contracts and colonial leftovers, had outlived its usefulness. Russia, on the other hand, was willing to negotiate from scratch. In May 2025, the military government granted a new industrial gold mining license to Nordgold, a Russian company with both the appetite and political backing to operate where others hesitate. This wasn't a small symbolic deal. The project is expected to yield 20.22 metric tons of gold over 8 years, becoming one of the most significant new ventures in Burkina Faso's modern mining era. More importantly, it wasn't a silent handshake behind closed doors. The Council of Ministers publicly confirmed that the Nordgold project would contribute approximately $89 million to the national budget, plus an additional 7.06 billion CFA francs directly into the country's mineral wealth fund. This transparency wasn't just for show, it was a message. This is how new partnerships will work. But why Russia? Unlike the West, which often brings with it institutional conditionality, media scrutiny, and long-winded development strings, Russia's approach is more transactional and tactical. It doesn't ask many questions about governance. It doesn't lecture. What it wants is access and reliability, and what it offers in return is investment without interference. And from Burkina Faso's perspective, that's exactly the kind of partner it needs in a post-coup reality. The country isn't just reconfiguring its economy, it's defending it. And that defense requires financial insulation from Western retaliation and diplomatic maneuvering that doesn't treat the junta as a temporary stain on history. Russia, already deepening its influence across Mali, Niger, and the Central African Republic, views Burkina Faso as the next logical link in a pan-Sahelian corridor of influence. A corridor where Western influence has waned and mutual interest, not moral lectures, drives diplomacy. For Moscow, investing in gold isn't just about profit. It's about strategic positioning. In a global order increasingly defined by multipolar tension, having long-term access to Africa's mineral belt means more than dollars. It means leverage. It means loyalty. It means hedging bets against the Western-dominated financial system. And so, Burkina Faso finds itself at the center of a quiet geopolitical tug-of-war, but this time, with the advantage. The same nation that was once viewed as an investment risk is now setting its terms and attracting suitors who understand that risk can also mean realignment. Nordgold's license is likely just the first of many. Sources close to Burkina Faso's Ministry of Energy and Mines have hinted at further exploratory discussions with Russian infrastructure and energy firms, suggesting that the gold deal could be the entry point for broader bilateral cooperation, from defense procurement to digital infrastructure. There's also a diplomatic synergy. As Western embassies reduce their presence and criticize the junta's democratic legitimacy, Russian diplomats are going the other way, building rapport, offering training, and creating people-to-people connections that bypass traditional elite structures. In cities like Ouagadougou, Russian language institutes and cultural centers are quietly popping up. Moscow isn't just sending machines, it's planting ideas. And while these moves may unsettle global watchdogs, they sit well with a government that no longer seeks validation, only partners. Still, this partnership comes with new dynamics. Russia may not impose the same ideological expectations as the West, but it does demand alignment. That means Burkina Faso is now entering a new kind of relationship, one based not on charity or control, but on calculated exchange. Whether that exchange remains balanced will depend on what the country does next. Because once the gold starts flowing again, the question won't just be about who's digging, but who's keeping the gold and what they're doing with it. And that leads to the final frontier in this transformation, turning raw output into real power, not just by extraction, but by economic weaponization. Gold, in its rawest form, is just a rock. But in the right hands, it becomes something more than a commodity. It becomes currency, leverage, and defense. For Burkina Faso in 2025, gold is no longer just a product of extraction. It's now a tool of economic warfare, strategic insulation, and political assertion. This evolution didn't happen overnight. It's the result of careful steps. First, reigniting production, then rewriting ownership laws, followed by realigning foreign partnerships. And now, Burkina Faso stands at the final and most transformative phase, using gold not just to survive, but to dominate its economic narrative. But what does it mean to weaponize gold? It means making the gold economy work for the state, not just for investors or exporters. It means channeling mining profits into national security, public infrastructure, and sovereign wealth, not into offshore accounts or stockholder dividends. It's about flipping the model, from resource drain to resource-driven resistance. The current administration under Captain Ibrahim Traore is not only conscious of this strategy, it's openly crafting it. The recent license granted to Russia's Nordgold wasn't just about tonnage and budgets. It was structured to inject nearly $90 million directly into the national treasury, with another 7 billion CFA francs earmarked for Burkina Faso's Mineral Wealth Fund. That fund isn't a passive account. It's becoming the financial engine behind a broader nationalist agenda, investing in military equipment without foreign strings, stabilizing the currency, and even exploring regional trade in gold-backed instruments, essentially using gold to push back against dependency on volatile foreign aid or debt markets. There are already signs that this approach is yielding results. According to internal documents leaked from the Ministry of Finance, part of the gold revenue is being redirected toward rural infrastructure programs, such as electrification of mining-impacted zones and road networks to connect extraction hubs to domestic processing facilities. It's a sharp departure from the past, where roads led only to export ports, not back to the people. Gold is also reshaping monetary thinking. Burkina Faso, long tethered to the CFA franc, an outdated colonial currency still influenced by the French treasury, is now openly entertaining alternatives. There are whispers in Ouagadougou about piloting gold-backed local notes for internal trade or launching mineral-tied savings bonds to raise internal capital while bypassing global credit markets. In short, gold is becoming a counterweight to economic colonization, and it goes even deeper. In private meetings among regional allies, particularly within the Sahelian bloc, Burkina Faso has floated the idea of forming a joint resource stabilization mechanism, where gold reserves from Burkina, Mali, and Niger could be pooled to shield member states from foreign financial pressure. While still early, this would mark a radical departure from traditional African monetary dependency. It would be the first time post-colonial African nations coordinated gold as a political shield, not just a trade product. The very act of hoarding, redirecting, and coordinating gold profits becomes an act of sovereignty. Burkina Faso isn't just exporting anymore, it's stockpiling purpose. And this new posture is reflected in how the state talks to its people. State-run media now routinely presents mining updates not as business news, but as victories in the ongoing war for economic dignity. Public rallies increasingly feature economic themes. Gold for our future, the soil is ours again. Slogans that blur the line between policy and nationalism. Of course, there are critics. Some worry that concentrating so much financial hope on a volatile commodity creates future risk. Others argue that state-led development, especially under a military regime, may favor control over transparency. But to the average Burkinabe, for now, it's simple. Gold is flowing. And for once, it's not flowing out of the country. It's flowing in. And that shift has consequences beyond borders. As Burkina Faso sharpens gold into a tool of resilience, it is rewriting the rules not only for itself but for the entire region. It's no longer just a gold producer. It's becoming a case study in how natural resources can be reclaimed, redirected, and used not just for profit, but for power. Do you think Traore did the impossible? Will more leaders join in? Let us know in the comment section. Are these moves changing Burkina Faso forever? Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If so, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We have decided to bring videos on something nobody talks about: the Black culture, civilization, history, and evidence about how glorious Blacks have been. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.